But you mentioned it not being really like worth it for WWE. With Brock, listen, Brock just resigns for the money at this point. He's not doing it to have fun or whatever. If they offer him money to come back, they may not have a plan for Brock right now, as they didn't have a plan for Edge 6 months ago, but they will have a plan for Brock come WrestleMania. I feel like Edge would have been in that same boat where they would have re-signed him and they would have put him in a match, and they would have put him in a match at Mania, come Mania, once they figure out what they're going to do with him. But he obviously wants to work more. You said it wasn't worth it for WWE to re-sign him. Is it worth it for AEW to pick up a big name like Edge and add him to their roster that already has a lot of people on it? That's the big question, I think.
Fucking hate you. I myself don't think it's worth it. I obviously don't know what the financials come down to. I guess we'll see what the ratings this week. I feel like for them, it's really tough. I mean, Punk unless like Roman Reigns, John Cena, or Brock Lesnar went to AEW, besides Punk, there's no other bigger name that could go there. It's like Punk couldn't really even move he moved the needle a little bit, but it wasn't even what people expected. I have to know the financials to say how much worth it is. Like they're having Dynamite tapings in buildings hosting 2,000 people. I mean, like the gifts were funny. Like Edge running out, he ran to the side. There's no crowd. He's like, "Where the fuck is everyone?" Like, it's a totally different aspect. So like financially, I would have to see like how much he's getting paid to actually think if it's actually worth it. But I don't know. I just feel like they do, like not that they are in a sense. But I think they just have a bigger budget. But I feel like it's not that it is. Like I said, I'm not saying it is, but it's giving me like TNA vibes. I'm just bringing in all these ex-WWE guys. And like they're going to be all over the show, and like I said, at the end of the day, is it worth it to push these guys over? I mean, Edge is going to get a spot over someone else that should be getting a spot, so you kind of have to weigh that. But like I said, I don't know how much money he's making. I don't think it's going to really affect the viewership that much. The attendance is low. To me, I don't think looking at all those factors, it's worth it.
So I don't know. I look at it this way. I think it's a name for a name. They lost CM Punk. I think CM Punk was a bigger draw than Edge was in terms of just merchandise, and it was a different scenario too. Because when Punk came back, he hadn't been in wrestling in 7 years. We just saw Edge in WWE 2 months ago, so it's not like we haven't seen Edge. If this is Edge in 2020 when he first comes back, I think that could have been equivalent to Punk's run in the sense that Edge hadn't wrestled in 9 years, his first run back with AEW, blah, blah, blah. I think he made the right choice in going to WWE first. I feel like his return would not have felt the same way if he came back as Adam Copeland in another company. I think he almost went to AEW, but he didn't. I think he made the right choice then. But as far as now, I mean, they lost Punk, and they kind of have a void there, and I feel like Edge kind of fills that in, because it's not like he's wrestling 5 times a year. He has his first match next week against Luchasaurus on Dynamite. So he's going to be wrestling not every week, but he will be appearing pretty consistently for them, which I like. The Christian thing makes sense. He wants to end his career with Christian. That seems like it was his biggest factor. If it wasn't for Christian, he probably would have stayed in WWE, to be honest with you. If we're going to be, really breaking this down here. I don't know. I think it is worth it. I think he does add a new veteran presence to the roster. Do I want to see him win the World Championship? Not necessarily. I mean, in WWE, it was one thing because they had 2 titles. He can win it on one brand. That's fine. Have a little token, run with it. In AEW, there were so many people ahead of him that should have the title before him that I probably wouldn't do that unless the story really made sense, at least not right now anyway. It depends how long this run goes. The funny thing is, they did not say during that press scrum that he was going to be around for the next 5 years. How long do you think his run lasts in AEW? Is it a short-term thing with Christian where he's only around for 6 months to 12 months? Or do you think he'll be around for 2 to 3 years?
I mean, I think you'd have to be around for a couple of years to make it worth it, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but I mean, we don't know how much he's getting paid. It's not like he's getting paid $5 million. We don't know.
I mean, I guarantee he's making 7 figures.
No, he is, but I'm not. There's a difference though between $3 million and $1 million. Like he could be making $1 million for a year as opposed to $3 million for 2 or 3 years.
I mean, I guess we don't really know, but like I said, you mentioned that you said it's a trade, basically a 1-for-1 trade with Punk, but WWE is really going in on the Punk references lately. Like if Punk goes to WWE, would you say it's worth letting Edge go to get Punk back, or?
I personally, I think it benefits more. I know this wasn't your question. I do think it is worth letting Edge go to bring Punk back because.
Okay.
At the end of the day, they're both, like, with Edge, there's really not much more you can do with him currently in AEW. Or, like, in WWE. If you bring in Punk, he hasn't been there in a decade, and there's a lot of people he can work with. I think Punk ahead. I'm not saying he should have even left AEW. If that situation didn't happen, I'm not saying don't fire him because he was a fucking, obviously a problem. He's a pain in the ass. If they can keep him in check, we've already talked about this a little bit, but I do think it's worth WWE bringing in Punk. Because I think there's a lot of people for him to work with. You have the Roman Reigns connection right off the bat. The Rollins thing right off the bat. And that's not even the new people that he hasn't worked with yet on both shows. I'm not saying they'll have him for 10 years, but I also think Punk coming in, I think he might even come in more full-time than fucking Edge was. So honestly, I think if we're really breaking this down here and being honest, if this was a trade, like it's sports, I think WWE gets more out of it than Edge does. I'm sorry, than AEW does with Edge.
No, I completely agree. So that's why I was kind of bringing up. You said,
yeah.
I think, and like in that aspect, like I said, they are hinting at. Like I would at this point, how much they're kind of leaning in on it, I would be shocked if he didn't come in.
I guess it's more a matter of when at this point. I do think Punk's going back regardless. I think it's just more a matter of, do they bring him back as soon as Survivor Series in Chicago? I know he made that comment on commentary at one of those MMA shows. Oh, I've got the next 2 months off. I mean, that was pretty specific. And Punk knows what he's doing when he hints at certain stuff. Could it be there? Would he return in the Rumble? Could he fucking win the Rumble? I mean, I don't know. I mean, anything is possible at this point. I think there's a scenario where I was thinking of Rollins and Gunther at Mania. I think there's a very real possibility that maybe Rhodes does something else to earn the opportunity with Roman at Mania, and we see Punk win the Men's Rumble instead, and he faces Rollins at WrestleMania, and he gets the Mania main event that he never got the first time.
I mean, set me up, pal.
I'm just saying, I'm not even advocating for it necessarily, because again, it's one of those situations that he himself was complaining about 10 years ago. Oh, these people here working all year, and then you bring in people like Rock to take away from the main eventers. I mean, that's literally him if he comes back. But I don't know. I think it's a real possibility. I think the Punk references are not by accident, especially if they're multiple weeks in a row. I think it's a great trade, Edge for Punk, but I do think WWE gets more out of it. Punk's a fucking liability too, so maybe it is more fair than I'm making it out to be, because Punk, there's the risk there that it doesn't work out. He gets hurt. Edge hasn't really gotten hurt a whole lot, so there is also that. Punk's injury prone. He's a hothead backstage, but I feel like they would keep him in check. But again, that's just my own 2 cents, because again, when he was last there 10 years ago, it seemed like he was a lot worse off in terms of his health, and he was on the verge of dying, he's called it, and stuff like that, but he wasn't backstage having fights with fucking Jack Swagger, you know? I don't know. It's a different situation, I think.
No, yeah, I completely agree. I mean, like I said, I think the references are definitely leaning into it. I don't think they would do it if they don't think there's a good chance it's coming.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be weird to see Adam Copeland in AEW and now Punk in WWE, but that might be what we're looking at come early 2024, and that might be a small taste of what else is to come. We already have Jade Cargill on the main, probably coming to the main roster. She officially signed last week. We talked about it last week, and she might be headed to the Red brand. Brian Pillman Jr. is not nearly in the atmosphere of those same names at all, but he's going to NXT. We know that now.